I completely get this business of getting past race, but I don't see how it can happen now. And that sounds so cliched. Hold on, go slow. But there is too deep a sense of difference among most Black people. There is too deep a sense of difference among most white people. There is a such thing as Black culture, which is part of most Black people, and it is not synonymous by any means with less educated white culture. There is also educated Black culture, but there's a such thing as Black culture. Black people have different norms of attention and interest in many ways than other people, just like Chinese people, just like Latino people. And these are fluid categories, but the idea that because a category is fluid, it isn't worth talking about is a rather modern illusion, and it's kind of fake in itself. To say we shouldn't think about race at all when we have not only those perceptions, but those often profound cultural differences strikes me at this point as antithetical to getting most American human beings to understand what we're talking about. I think we can get past race once we get past certain other things. And so let's have to speak carefully. I will get past race, for example, when I do not see certain Black people allowed to bring less than their white equivalents would have to a discussion, where whites allow them to get away with what is more semaphore than reasoning because they are Black, for example. Once that stops happening and white people can get past seeing us as so different and frankly as so much lower, I would be more inclined to get past race. Once there are probably more hybrid people for whom racial identity simply cannot be as cut and dried as many people would like it to be because they're both things. Call that, I'm going to sound like Sandra Day O'Connor on affirmative action. Call it another generation, maybe, where there's so very many. But at this point, I can't see that argument that we're all just Homo sapiens getting much traction. There are too many people, and I do hate to say that in this case, I'm thinking mostly of brown people, who would be so offended by that idea because all they can hear in it, I'm sorry, folks, but all they can hear in it is someone liking whiteness better. And you just run across that tripwire, and once a certain person thinks that, they'll never hear you again. I can't risk that now. And so I get where Camille is coming from. I respect it completely. He's probably right in the long term. But here in 2022, we cannot have a constructive race debate yet in stressing that. And that's hard. I need to grapple with this more. But yeah, we do need to get past race, but we can't do it now, not with the way most people think. It's hard.
I think you're probably wrong.
I hope, in a way.
It was kind of your position that I was defending with Bob Woodson in that debate. I mean, I was saying short run, long run. I was saying in the long run, just like European ethnic identity differences faded with intermarriage and assimilation through the course of the 20th century, so that being Irish or Italian Catholic or Jewish didn't mean the same kind of modular distinction and differentiation in 2000 as it meant in 1900. Likewise, in 2100, Blackness will not have the same kind of siloed one-drop rule, insulated, distinct identity. The lines will get blurred. I think that's the long run. I agree about that. But I think it's going to come quicker than you might imagine. That's where I perhaps would take issue. You say it's locked in and people, you can't see them getting out. And I agree, but they're going to die. I mean, okay, they're going to die in 25 or 30 or 50 years, not in 100 years. But the margins, for example, what did we do with these Nigerian immigrants? all over the Ivy League. I don't know, a big chunk. You cited the statistic, didn't you, of the so-called Black students at the most elite universities are of either West African or Caribbean, second generation immigrant.
But they tend to take on Black American ideology, though. And I don't mean extremely, but they don't feel like their parents.
So the identity, what is Blackness? So that it's kind of, it's in flux and it's kind of unstable. I mean, Obama is not a descendant of slaves. I mean, he's Black. I mean, so Blackness, the meaning of Blackness, it's kind of getting, I was going to say hollowed out, but that's putting it too strongly. I don't mean to say that it is evaporating, but I mean to say that it's flexible and its boundaries. And intermarriage, I mean, so-called mixed race kids. I got kids. There was this one kid in one of my lecture courses who I saw recently. My students love me. They want to take me to dinner and everything, even though we're not in the class anymore, because they just want to stay in contact with Professor Loury, which is wonderful because I love them and I want to stay in contact with them. And, he's a light brown skinned kid or a dark light skinned kid or what? Got the hell. And he told me he was a person of color. And I didn't, I've been with him for a whole year and I didn't know that he was a person of color.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know. I thought he might be a swarthy, forgive me. So, forgive
swarthy.
Me. White person, I mean, and it just exposes how, Thomas Chatterton Williams has got to be right. Doesn't everybody have to read Self-Portrait in Black and White? Doesn't everybody have to read the book and think about the deep, subtle kind of exposure of the relativity of it all? Because this is all a kind of socially achieved, agreed upon set of categories that I think are under a lot of pressure. The other thing I'd say is there are more Latinx, Hispanic people than there are Blacks by far. I mean, it's like, 18-20% of the population or something like that. I mean, compared to Blacks, like 12% of the population, depending on where you are in the country, it's more than that.
Mm-hmm.
They are a part of this people of color coalition too. In a way, it's like these race mongers are hoist on their own petard. They invent a set of arguments about non-whiteness. This is basically about non-whiteness. And then they look up and the non-white Asians are tearing the doors off the hinges at the most elite academic establishments. And the non-white Hispanics are beating you to the ballot box and having a greater degree of political sway. They act, now the Asians don't act in the name of disadvantage and exclusion. They do not. But this identitarian sensibility that's been created based upon, what do you do with the Voting Rights Act when you get away from Mississippi circa 1958 and you get to America in 2023? So here I'll just put the African American case is exceptional, both in terms of its anchor at the core of American national identity, the Civil War, and in terms of the socioeconomic political dynamic that has produced today's exclusion and marginality. That's a product of slavery and of Jim Crow and of migration and of all these things and of racism and reactions. So the Afro-American case is unique. Blacks are not white, but a lot of not white people are not Black.
Mm-hmm.
If you design your institutions of law and politics and culture around the moral imperative of the African-American case, but then apply it to everybody who's not white, you've made a huge, monumental historical error.